Let's go on a little journey back to the early 2010s and how certain things that happened back there can help us explain the present. What I'm going to go back to is the internet in the early 2010s and an event called GamerGate, which, although was branded as about ethics in game journalism, was actually just a misogynistic, anti-feminist campaign to attempt to drive women and other progressives out of gaming spaces. And despite it being very obvious what it was, games journalism and games publishers took it very seriously and behaved like it was a legitimate campaign. Quite apart from claims that the media in gaming was biased against them, the media actually did them a solid. It pretended that they were actually fighting for some kind of cause beyond what was obviously what they were doing. And although it didn't fundamentally change the face of gaming, it did do something very important. It successfully drove many of the targets of the campaign out of public spheres, apart from a handful who were able to turn it into the beginnings of their own careers. And it taught the people who latched onto the campaign both, one, how to radicalize people, and two, how much power they had, and how easy it was to get publications which claimed to be objective to treat them as valid actors. Because hamstrung by their own understanding of what objectivity means, they forced themselves to take seriously what shouldn't have been taken seriously, and to portray the two sides of Gamergate as if they were two equally justified arguments. After that Gamergate, there were other attempts to do things like this, such as sad puppies in the literature sphere. But the people who built their platforms as leaders of Gamergate and their followers next got their big opportunity with the rise of Donald Trump. As the same tactics to appeal to alienated young men by love bombing them and telling them that actually everything they believe and all the victimhood they feel is entirely correct, and giving someone for them to blame for that, worked just as well with Donald Trump as the figurehead as it was attacking women in games journalism. And so you had the rise of the 4chan and the Pepe meme crowd leading up to the 2016 election. And when Trump then won, this filled this movement with a sense of power, which gave purpose to all of those people who'd been convinced that they were the world's victims. These tactics spread as the movement grew more diverse and splintered, from everything from the incel movement to the manosphere with Tate and Co. And of course it stayed alive and well in video gaming and geek spaces. The same people who made their names in Gamergate or were raised in Gamergate became some of the people who led the charge of harassment and intimidation against women, and especially women of colour, in Star Wars. In that time frame of about half a decade, the internet had changed. People weren't spending as much time on internet forums and had spread onto social media, especially social media like Twitter. And the same radicalization tactics and the same grifting opportunities for the leaders who were able to radicalize an audience into seeing them as a figurehead worked just as well on platforms like Twitter and YouTube as they had done on 4chan. And who should walk into this radicalization network that had been trained over years in how to achieve this kind of process but a billionaire man-child who believed he was the victim of other people. Someone with the same crippling insecurity and ego of all the most likely targets for radicalization. Someone who, ever faced with rejection from anyone from his daughter to Stephen King, responded with complete denial and responded extremely positively to people turning up, love bombing him, telling him he was right, and treating him like he was all important. Enter Elon Musk, and egged on by this extraordinarily online crowd of people who'd been doing this for years, he was easy prey and became just another one of many men with deep insecurities and belief that they are being victimized by the world to fall into that trap. Unlike the many boys and young men who'd fallen into those traps previously, Elon Musk has literally no excuse for this happening to him. Most of them are in struggling circumstances. They're especially young. They're most likely to fall down these rabbit holes in about 14 to 16 years old. Elon Musk is just so rich and has been for so long that he's functionally a man-child. He's incredibly immature. And it's incredibly easy to see that by just visiting his Twitter feed and seeing how he talks to people. Anyway, egged on by this crowd, which united to some degree the more gaming tech-focused side with the misogynists, with the right-wing reactionaries who followed Trump, he decided to buy Twitter. And you can see from the months before that decision was made, the same accounts he was interacting with over and over and over again. The same accounts that had been radicalizing young men for years. And because they'd been love-bombing him, because they'd been so effective using the tactics they've been using for years, he was willing to do basically anything for them, including buying the social network they're on to give them as much as they wanted. Give them money from the site, give them free promotions, make their tweets the most important on the website. And because this is all very internet focused, it's both very meme heavy, lots of in-jokes and in-talk that no one else understands, but also it's just absolutely unhinged from reality. The way they talk about the world has no connection to reality. It's only about how they can interact online, how they can radicalize people. And if that means inventing an entire new reality to do it with, their targets aren't going to know any better. They barely leave the house. And this same group of people gets behind Donald Trump again, 2020, again, 2024. And then when he finally wins, having become terminally online himself through Truth Social, Trump does what Elon did. Whatever they wanted. He's been love-bombed by this crowd for years. He's a narcissist. That's all he's ever wanted. And so he's giving back into the reality that they have invented. And remember, they know how powerful and influential they can be. They know that mass media will treat them as legitimate actors and will sane wash all the weirdness that they get up to. Donald Trump gets elected, he gets ready to enter the White House, and he makes Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy two darlings of this ex-4chan Twitter mob, heads of the Department of Government Efficiency, which sounds like a normal department, until you realise that the acronym is DOGE, DOGE, as in Dogecoin, the cryptocurrency that Elon Musk promoted. And they are delighted by this. They're sharing it everywhere. They're making up new memes. They're using AI images. His entire fan club is cheering because they have achieved what they have been building towards for 10 years. Making their deeply reactionary, misogynistic, anti-LGBT culture transferred all the way from video gaming to government. This is the last domino of dominoes that started tumbling when games journalists took this hate mob seriously, pretended they had something relevant and legitimate to say, instead of shutting down what was clear all along. It was a misogynistic hate campaign, one that has now been involved in a victory for the most anti-woman election in American history. 10 years, and this ludicrous result could have been ended then.